Okay, I want to say good morning to everybody on this lovely Wednesday morning in November and welcome everybody to the class. Today we're going to be learning Sefer Shmuel, chapter 17, and the class is sponsored by Hadassah Lavona chapter in Modi'in, and we are very happy to be able to bring you this class. We are being sponsored this morning by Sharon Epstein. Sharon Epstein is sponsoring the class in memory of Hadar Golden, who has just he was a Chayal whose body was just returned after being held 11 years by Hamas, and Sharon said that it reminded her of the reason that we started this class in the first place, that when the three boys, yeshiva boys, were kidnapped 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Um, Hadar Golden was one of the first soldiers to be killed in the battle called Operation Protective Edge, and his body's been held ever since. So Sharon saw the video yesterday of the funeral, and it touched her, and she wanted to share her thoughts and feelings with our class and memorialize him. And we thank you very much, Sharon, for sponsoring the class today. Uh, Okay. In addition to that, I just would like to make a quick announcement because I have whoever's watching that the Hadassah Lavona chapter in Modi'in will be having their December meeting on Monday, December 8th at 10:30 a.m. in Dimri Building 51. And it's going to be chair Pilates for seniors and brunch. So it should be a lot of fun. We're going to do a little exercise, do a little eating, and a lot of socializing. So we hope you'll join us, mark your calendars, and you'll be seeing a flyer coming out soon. So thank you very much. And we're going to start our class now. So my question to the class and to all of you out there in TV land is, how did we get to the battlefield in the Valley of Elah, with on one side of on one mountain there are thousands and thousands and thousands of Philistines, and on the other there are a few thousand Hebrews. And there we are standing across from each other for 40 days. 40 days. King Saul is unable to start the battle, finish the battle, engage in the battle, run away from the battle. He's unable to do anything. He's stuck. And as we know, the Ruach of Hashem has left him. Shmuel the prophet has told Samuel, I'm sorry, Shmuel the prophet has told Shaul that he will no longer be king, and that God will leave, the Spirit of God will leave Shaul, and his time is basically over. However, even though David, the little shepherd boy, has been anointed by Shmuel, he has not certainly taken possession of the kingship or the crown as of yet. He is patiently waiting because he has a lot of respect for Shaul. And as you know, since Shaul has lost the Ruach HaKodesh that he had, he is in terrible mental distress, and it has been bothering him. He's stuck with his life. He can't make decisions. He can't make judgment calls, and he is having a terrible time functioning in life. And when he gets into uncontrollable rage because of his frustration and his anger at the whole situation. His servants have and advisors have felt that it was necessary to bring in a musician to calm his nerves. And who do we find that musician is? But no other than David. And he's there to play the harp, to calm his nerves, Shaul's nerves, and to restore him and bring him back to some type of normalcy, which we find is pretty much impossible at this point. So we really have started chapter 17, and we we're going to go and take a look at it again, because I think it's very important that that we um that we understand exactly um what has transpired, what has happened, and how we got to this point. Because believe it or not, it's really a pivotal move, a pivotal point in our history. So I'm going to pull up. Um, hold on. I'm going to find a map, because I think it's very, very important that we understand what's going on in order to go forward. Hold on one second. I'm having a little. Okay. Um, Sorry about this. All right. Um, oh dear, I had a map and now I can't find it. Let me see if this is it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. Now, can you all see this map? This is the map of Philistine cities and their conquests in Israel. All right. Now, what's so important about this? First of all, it's important to understand that the Philistines were not natives of this region. They came from the continent of Europe, before it was called Europe, and they come across the Mediterranean, and they were really going to go to Egypt. That was their plan. They decided that they would conquer the most powerful country on the face of the earth at that time. It was during the Bronze Age, and that they were going to take over Egypt and then control, after that, the rest of the region. Now, on their way to Egypt, they decided to stop at the land of Canaan at that time, which becomes Eretz Yisrael, and they pull into port, into Ashkelon and Ashdod and to Gaza, three of their cities. The other two was Lachish. We have Lachish here, and Gat. Those were the five. Ekron, also Ekron. So these were the cities of the Philistines, and they decided that if you could control Israel, then you were controlling the crossroads between Africa and Asia. And if you had this small piece of land called Eretz Yisrael, you could control not only trade You could control the countries in both continents, and it become extremely powerful. They were seafaring people, and they brought with them technology and how to make bronze and eventually iron weapons. And if we keep that bronze and iron development in mind, you'll understand the detailed discussion by Shmuel about what Goliath was wearing. It's very interesting. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to read the story line here, and we're going to see why it was such an unusual battle. You know, when we read Tanakh, when we read Torah, we read Tanakh, we read Haftorahs, etc., we just assume everything is just placed there it randomly and that God is controlling everything. And it's a story that we need to understand, but we don't look at it in the context of the history of the world. And what's important is that we must look at it in the context of the history of the world. Otherwise, it's doesn't have the significance and the power of what God has done to protect his people. Now, when I showed you that map, maybe I should show you again. This was a time when Shaul was beginning to become extremely dependent on David. Shaul's career was this was the beginning of the end for Shaul and the beginning of David's career in Jewish history. Now take a look at this. Here is Gaza, way over here. Here's all the cities of the Plishtim, the Philistines. Now here's the river, and here's the one of the seas. Here's the Jordan River right up here, and here's the sea from the river to the sea. Okay, now if you are a conquest minded country or nation of people, you look at this map, look how they are going for the heartland of Israel. And what happens? They get all the way over to here, here, and here, all these different cities that you can see. And the battle of Goliath is right near Beit Shemesh, right here, right in smack in the middle of the country. And where is David coming from to fight the battle against Goliath? Right here from Beit Lechem. Okay? Now, if somebody comes into your backyard, like the Philistines, like someone who's threatening your life, what are you going to do? They are prepared to slice the country in half and take over. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Now look at what they want to do. They want to come from Gaza, Ashdod, and Ashkelon, from Gat, Lachish area, and Ekron. Look at this. And go from west to east and slice it in half and separate Israel, take over the parts of Israel and the tribes of Israel and defeat them. And then they can go south to Egypt to take over, and they can go north to Asia. And what's up north? Eventually Syria, Lebanon, south is Egypt, and all along our border on the east over here are the Moabites, the Ammonites, all our enemies. So all they have to do is slice through, join the other forces, and take over the entire country. Are we not living through the same thing now? It's amazing, unbelievable. And yet, have we learned anything? I'm not sure. Anyway, so I wanted you to understand why this battle in the Valley of Elah was so critical for Bnei Yisrael. And yet we read, and we're going to read the story here in chapter 17. Here we go. And we're going to see some very, very interesting things here. Okay? Remember, Shaul, the king, should be the one who on day one says, I will go and fight for our nation. And he can't. He has lost his courage. He can no longer manage to make a decision, and he is unable to lead the people. And the Philistines know this. You can see by proximity, they certainly have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in Israel, and they understand that the king is weak, and the people understanding that the fear of Shaul is overtaking him, the fear of the people overtake them as well. And that's why they're on the battlefield doing nothing for 40 days except being taunted by a huge guy. Okay, so let's read this, understanding that the king can't make a decision and that the Philistines are hell-bent on taking over the entire country of Israel so that they can control both Asia and Africa. So, having said that, now let's read. Xenia, would you read for us, please?
Yes. And the Philistines assembled their camps to war, and they assembled at Soho, which belonged to Judah, and they encamped between Soho and Azekah in Ephes Damim. And Shaul and the men of Israel assembled, and they encamped in the valley of the Terebinth, and they set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines were standing on the mountain from here, and Israel was standing on the mountain from here, and the valley was between them. And the champion emerged from the Philistines' camp named Goliath, and Gath, his height was 6 cubits and a span.
Okay, now Goliath means uh, Goliath from Gat. So it's
Mhm.
Goliath. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he's a big guy. He's a
Mhm.
giant. And we know
Mhm.
that in the time of Tanakh, there were giants. There are many
Mhm.
midrashim about the giants and who the mother of the giants were. Some, and this is midrash. It's not text. Some attribute that Orpah, Naomi's daughter-in-law, was the mother of the giants. That's midrash, but it's very interesting to see that if you want to talk about Orpah being the mother of the giants and David being the great grandson of Ruth, the two daughters-in-law here are on the battlefield.
Okay.
So
Um,
it's interesting.
and a helmet of copper was on his head, and he was wearing a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of copper.
Now that's like 60 pounds.
Mhm. Wow.
Okay. So
Mhm.
this guy is big. And
Mhm.
and certainly the front of his chest and his whole body is covered with the scale like bronze and copper coating and it now Shmuel wants us to know exactly how covered he is from head to toe. Now, read the whole thing and let's see
Okay.
the what else is going on?
Okay. And greaves of copper were on his legs, and a copper javelin was between his shoulders. And the shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the spear's head was 600 shekels of iron, and shield bearer went before him. And he,
Okay.
oh,
So
mhm.
he is covered from his shoulders. He's got a helmet. He's got these like shoulder pads. He's got breastplate. He's got things on his legs that cover his entire legs and feet. So this man is protected from head to toe. And the only place that is not covered is
His face.
It's
his
fake.
face.
Mhm.
That's right, his face.
Mhm.
So anyone taking a look at this guy would say there's no vulnerability here except his
It's
face.
fake.
Okay, go ahead.
And he stood and called to the array of Israel, and he said to them, why should you come out to wage war? Am I not the Philistine, and you the servant of Shaul? Choose for yourselves a man, and let him come down to me. If he is
So,
able to, oh, go ahead.
so wait, so let me, so what he has been doing for the past 40 days is that he has been taunting Israel to the point where everyone has lost their spirit to fight, and Shaul cannot make the decision to go to battle, and he cannot even go ride out into the field and start the war. He's paralyzed. And so what's going on is that um uh, I think is Malbim has said that the Ruach HaKodesh, God has left Shaul, and Shaul is unable to lead his people. And the people see this and they're afraid. Now, continue.
And if he is able to fight with me and kill me, we shall be slaves to you. And if I overcome him and kill him, you shall be slaves to us and serve us.
Now, think about what he just said. If you win, all of the Philistines are going to be your servant. And if you lose, you'll be our servant. Now,
Mhm.
which one of those sentences are not true? Do you think in your wildest dreams
Right,
that the
that they
Philistines, having
would
lost
agree.
a battle, would become the servants of
Mhm.
Israel?
No.
No, not at all.
Mhm.
So he is not telling, he is again blowing up and distorting the picture and saying we'll do this, we'll do that. It is untrue from the moment he opens his mouth, but
Mhm.
he knows they're fearful and he is trying to goad them. Go ahead.
And the Philistine said, I taunt the ranks of Israel this day. Give me a man and let us fight together. And Shaul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, and they were panic stricken and very much afraid. And David was the son of this Ephrathite man from Bethlehem of Judah, whose name was Jesse. And he had 8 sons, and the man was old in Shaul's time, coming among men. And Jesse's 3 oldest sons who had followed Shaul went to war. And the names of his 3 sons who went to war were Eliab, the firstborn, and the second to him, Abinadab, and the third, Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Shaul. Now, a minute. And the Philistines drew near morning, evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said, whoops, I think
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
where am I supposed to be? What number? I think we need to go, I missed it more. Yeah. Is that, okay. And the Philistine grew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said to David his son, take now to your brothers an ephah of this parched corn and 10 loaves of bread, and rush them to the camp to your brothers. And you shall bring these 10 cheeses to the captain of the 1,000, and you shall see how your brothers are faring, and you shall take the tidings of their welfare. And Shaul and they and all the men of Israel in the valley of Terebinth were at war with the Philistines. And David arose early in the morning, and he left the sheep with a keeper, and he carried off and went, as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the barricade, and the army which was going out to the battle array shouted in the battle. And the Israelites and the Philistines put the battle in array, army against army. And David left the baggage in the hand of the keeper of the baggage, and he ran to the battle array, and he came and greeted his brothers. And while he was speaking with them, behold, the champion named Goliath, the Philistine from Gath, was coming up from the ranks of the Philistines, and he spoke the same words as before, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, upon seeing the man, fled from before him and were exceedingly frightened. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who is coming up? For he is coming up to taunt Israel. And it will be that the man who will kill him, the king, will enrich him with great riches, and he will give him his daughter, and he will make his father's house free in Israel. And David said to the men who were standing before him, saying, what shall be done to the man who slays that Philistine and takes away reproach from Israel? And who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should taunt the ranks of the living God? And the people said to him, so shall be done to the man who slays him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's wrath was kindled against David. And he said, why have you come down? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the desert? I know your impetuousness and the evil of your heart, for you have come down in order to see the war. And David said, what have I done now? Is it not but a word? And he turned around from him toward another, and he spoke according to the same manner. The people answered according to the former manner. And the words which David had spoken were heard, and they related them before Shaul, and he took him. And David said to Shaul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your bondsman will go and battle with the Philistine.
Okay, so let's wait. So now we have a lot of things going on
Mm-hmm.
here. In this story so far, we have Goliath, and he's been described to us. We have Shaul, and he's been, he's in the background. We have David, who's being sent by his father with a food package to the war effort. Jesse has absolutely no idea that his son David is going to go to be the one to fight Goliath, or to get involved in the battle, because Jesse has already sent his three oldest sons to join the army of Shaul. So consequently, Yishai, is just sending David as a shaliach with a package. Little does he know that God is orchestrating how to get David from the shepherd boy activities to the battlefield, where one of the tests of David, one of his first tests, will be very decisive in his history. And then we have the brothers, who are very angry to see David, and kind of denigrate him, because they feel like he's not significant. He should not be there. He can't represent the family. And what's he doing there? They've had conflict consistently throughout the family, Yishai's family, with David as the youngest son. And we also have what's going on among the people, and everybody's standing around and talking about the king and what he's offering as a reward to whoever goes out to fight this giant. And that's a very significant thing. So when we hear that amongst the people that Shaul has offered his daughter in marriage to the hero of the battle, we then see the second part of how David is going to get into the royal family. Now, even though David is currently the harpist, the musician playing for Shaul, he's not a member of the family. So now we're going from shepherd boy delivering a package, hearing what's going on among the people, and David is very perplexed because he hears all these taunts from Goliath against God. He's not concerned about the taunts against Shaul because David knows what? That Shaul's
Oh,
not
yes.
going to be king very much longer, even though he has the utmost respect for Shaul and for the prince, Jonathan. He loves them. And so, consequently, when David hears these taunts against God, that's what gets him riled up. That's what gets him angry. And that's what gets him to the point where he makes a decision to volunteer to be the adversary of Goliath. So when we learned about Shaul and how he was anointed, and God gave Shmuel information to tell Shaul, when you get to the city, you will meet two people and they will teach you this. And then when you get further on, you'll meet three people and they will sit with you. And then you'll meet a band of musicians and they will teach you about prophecy. Those were the steps of getting Shaul ready to become king. Totally different with David. Totally different. God has changed the way he's going to prepare David for kingship. He is going because the king primarily is the leader of the army and leads the people into battle to protect Bnei Israel. The first thing God is going to do is get him prepared to lead a battle of war. And this is it. And he's going to do it alone. This is tremendously significant because even when Shaul goes into battle, he leads all the army. Even though he goes first, he does take his army with him. David is not taking an army with him. David is going single handedly to fight Goliath. And this is not a physical war type battle. This is a spiritual battle. This is a fight against the philosophy of the Philistines, against the God of Israel and God of the universe. This is not a war of just territory, of crops, of possessions. It is not even like the war against Amalek of ideology. This is a spiritual battle against idolatry and God, the God of Israel. And we have to keep that in mind because that's what makes this so miraculous. David is fully committed to God, and we see what happens when he volunteers. Let's continue. Go ahead.
And and Shaul said to David, "You are unable to go to this Philistine to battle with him, for you are a lad, and he is a warrior since his youth." And David said to Shaul, "Your bondsman was a shepherd of sheep for his father, and there came a lion and also a bear and carried off a lamb from the flock. And I went after him and smote him, and saved it from his mouth. And he arose upon me, and I took hold of his jaw, and I smote and slew him. Both the lion and the bear has your bondsman slain, and the uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he taunted the armies of the living God." And David said, "The Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will save me from the hand of the Philistine." And Shaul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you."
Okay, now, do you really think that Shaul cares whether David has fought a bear and a lion?
No.
No, no, he's totally unimpressed. All right. And he feels like, I don't need to hear this story about what you did. I need to know if you are the right one to go to battle. And it isn't until David says, "The Lord saved me." He
Mhm.
gives complete and utter um,
Right.
kudos and gratitude to God. And he says, God saved me. I didn't do it myself. I had God with me. And once he says that God was with me, Shaul recognizes that this is the man that has to do this is the boy, the man child who is going to have to go out, because if God is with this boy, then he will be successful, because God is not with Shaul, and Shaul knows that.
Mhm.
So that's what makes this sentence so important, that the Lord was with me, and that's why I was able to kill the bear and the lion. So Shaul says, "Okay, you can go out, but continue."
Okay. I think we have to go up to 38. Okay. And Shaul dressed David with his garments, and he placed a copper helmet on his head, and he dressed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword over his garments, and he did not want to go in them, for he was not accustomed. And David said to Shaul, I cannot go with these, for I am not accustomed. And David took them off.
Okay, so now what was the first instinctive thing that Shaul does for David? He does what he would do for himself. He covers himself in protection.
Mhm,
He doesn't say, I don't need anything, God will be with me. He covers himself just like the Philistines.
mhm,
Do you see this? See what happens here? Shaul has taken on the philosophy of the Philistines. He has lost his connection with God and says, I need protection. God's not with me. So I will cover myself with all that heavy stuff, and the sword, and the armor and everything. And David goes, I don't want all this stuff. It's not mine. I
mhm,
I don't need it. Take it off of me. So you see what has happened to Shaul, and now what is happening
mhm,
with David. He is
mhm,
standing up for facing the enemy, completely vulnerable, because he
mhm.
knows that God is with him. Go ahead.
And he took his staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth pebbles from the brook, and placed them in the shepherd's bag which he had, and in the sack. And his slingshot was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. And the Philistine was continuously drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield was before him. And the Philistine looked and saw David, and he despised him, for he was a youth and ruddy with an attractive appearance. And the Philistine said to David, I am a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his God. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I shall give your flesh to the fowl of the air and to the cattle of the field. And David said to the Philistine, You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, and I come to you with the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, which you have taunted.
Okay, so here's the shepherd boy. It doesn't say that as David enters the battlefield, Goliath sees the sling, he sees the rocks. David is very, very quiet about what he's going to do. It's not a big presentation like the description of Goliath and all his armor and his javelin and his arms bearer and his sword carrier and all the pomp and circumstance. He just appears on the field. And Goliath says, What are you coming to? You think I'm a dog? Because David had a staff. That's what the twig is. It's a staff. In Hebrew, it's that David goes on the field with a staff. Okay. It's a makel, it's a stick. And so he says, what, you're gonna like throw a stick and I'm gonna go chase it? Is that what you're gonna do to me? So here he's taunting him again. And David knows exactly what he's going to do. He picks up those stones, he puts them in his pocket, and he knows exactly how he's going to take over this giant. Go ahead.
This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I shall slay you and take off your head. And I shall give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines this day to the fowl of the air and to the breasts of the earth. And all the earth shall know that Israel has a God. And all this assembly shall know that not with sword and javelin does the Lord save, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will deliver you into our hand. And it was when the Philistine arose and drew closer to David that David hastened and ran to the battle array toward the Philistine.
Okay.
Uh, And David stretched his hand into the bag and took a stone therefrom and slung it. And he hit the Philistine in his forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. And David overpowered the Philistine with the slingshot and with the stone, and he smote the Philistine and slew him, and no sword was in David's hand. And David ran and stood up to the Philistine, and he took his sword and drew it from its sheath and slew him, and with it severed his head. And the Philistines saw that their hero had died, and they fled.
Okay. So what has happened here? Uh, in a blink of an eye, and we say this all the time, in a blink of an eye, life changes. In a
Mm-hmm.
blink of an eye, David whips out his stone. He throws it with his slingshot. He hits Goliath right into the forehead. And usually, a person who has been hit with such force would reel backwards and fall back on their back. But it says he fell forward onto the ground, indicating that he can no longer taunt Israel with his words. His mouth has been closed, and gives David the opportunity to run over to him, pull his Goliath's sword out of his the sheath, and take off his head. Now, this all has a lot of symbolism. We're going to talk about this in a little while. So let's continue. We'll finish the pasuk, the parak, and we'll continue talking. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And the men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until you come to the valley and until the gates of Ekron. And the slain of the Philistines fell on the road of Sha'arim and up to Gath and up to Ekron.
All right, so they're retreating.
Mm-hmm.
They're leaving the valley. There is no bloodshed except for Goliath, and they're all going. Did they submit to become the servants of Israel?
No.
No. No. So go ahead.
And the children of Israel returned from pursuing the Philistines and plundered their camps. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, and his weapons he put in his tent. And when Shaul saw David going out toward the Philistine, he said to Abner, the general of his army, "Whose son is this youth, Abner?" And Abner said, "By your life, O king, I know not."
Now, do you think that Avner didn't know and that Shaul didn't know? Here's the guy, here's the harpist that's been soothing Shaul for many, many days or weeks, and they don't know who it is. This is basically a rhetorical question when he said, "Who is this guy?" There's,
Right.
like, what? Who is this guy? Like, even though they know who he is, and he certainly has just put armor on him, and he knows that where he's from, like, what's going on here? How did this happen? Who is this guy? Like, is this a superhero here? So it's really not a question of he doesn't know who he is. They do know who he is. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, and the king said, "You ask whose son this youth is." And as David returned from slaying the Philistine, Abner called him and brought him before Shaul, and the Philistine's head was in his hand. And Shaul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? And David said, The son of your bondsman, Jesse the Bethlehemite.
Okay. So so that's the end of the this particular chapter in Shmuel. And what we're seeing here is extremely important because as a result of David being the hero, he now has stepped out of the role of shepherd boy into hero of the king of of Israel, and the people are actually going to reward him, with their accolades, with their adoration, and this is going to be extremely difficult for Shaul. Now, Shaul does the same thing. Shaul um is actually giving him a new position. He says, You are going to be the commander of thousands. And he's giving him a job based on his success here as in the army. So um, we find that, and I'm going to that Malbim says that as a result of God leaving Shaul and God entering David, we have basically seen the transfer of power of the military from Shaul to David. Now, it's interesting. What do we learn that David takes with him on his way back home? He doesn't, it says at the end, he takes the head of Goliath with him. I guess that's a symbol of the spoils of war for him. But what else does he take? He takes Goliath's sword.
Mhm.
Now, keep this in mind because this is very important. This sword represents the lack of arms and weapons of Bnei Israel. They don't have any weapons. All they have is knives, kind of like farm tools. They don't have any chariots. They don't have any spears. They don't have any javelins. They have none of this. And why is that? Is because when the Philistines kept coming into the country and going to war with Israel, they took all the weapons and they did not allow Israel to have any metal weapons. So they had bows and arrows, they had slingshots, they had some types of farm implements that might be used as dangerous objects, but they always had to go to the Philistines to have the Philistines sharpen their farm tools or sharpen any blade that they might have. And they only had um, these very crude implements. So again, anytime Israel won a battle with the Philistines because they had no weapons, it was certainly attributed to God. And not only that, the only two swords that Bnei Israel had at the time was the king had a sword and the prince Yonatan had a sword. So Shaul and Yonatan had swords. That's it. That's it. And we also learn that um, that Bnei Israel was not protecting the country. How did the Philistines enter the country? They just walked in. There was no one stopping them. There was no one guarding the borders. They just walked in because they knew that the country was in a slump and that the king was out of control and that they could do whatever they wanted. Does this sound familiar?
Hmm.
October 7th, they just
Mhm.
walked right in because the country was in disarray. The country was not being run properly. The people were at odds with each other, and the enemy could just walk right into our backyard and do whatever they wanted. This this is a this is a repeat of history like no other. So this is very, very frightening because even though we don't have a king, we have leaders, and our leaders have to be strong, courageous, and they have to have some type of Ruach HaKodesh within them, which means a strength, a faith, a courage that God has given to these men and women who lead our country. Because if we do not continue to have faith in God and our leaders do not believe that this is a Jewish state led by Jews and occupied by Jews, then we will lose the existential war. And this is exactly what it was with the Philistines. So, let's talk for a few moments about what was going on as the prize for winning the battle. Now, when David arrives and there's all this talk about what's to be done for the man who kills this guy, everyone wants to know what the reward is. So what we find out that the prize first is an expression of Shaul's personal interest in this matter, that he cannot do anything except offer up his child, his daughter, in marriage. That's the only thing he can do. So that's the first thing. So the prize comes from Shaul, who actually should be the one on the battlefield. The second thing we learn is that it illustrates the enormity of Israel's fate to meet up with Goliath, and how important this whole situation is to Shaul. He wants to prove to the people he's still in control, even though he can't. All right, and the grand prize fails to persuade anybody. There wasn't anybody who took Shaul up on the deal, except the reason that David took it up is not because he would marry into the family, although it was a very interesting offer. It was an opportunity for David, through Ruach HaKodesh with Hashem, to get one step closer to kingship and to show that he was destined to lead the people. So that's the first thing about the prize. And according to Ralbag, David understood that these events as the were the beginning of the realization of him becoming king after being anointed. And so this is a very powerful and very important part in our history when power is being transferred, and David's line will be forever. Okay, we know Mashiach ben David. We know that the kingship stayed in the family of David Amelech. It did not depart. And God, even though over and over and over was disappointed with many, many, many of the kings from the line of David, he never took away kingship from David. It was not, and even though David was a different sort of a person than Shaul, he never ever, even when David made mistakes, he always said, I'm sorry to God. Chatati. He always acknowledged that God was the one he needed to apologize to before he apologized to anybody else. And this is a very important lesson that we need to learn, that God is governing all of these huge situations and players, and by us being strengthened by Hashem, we need to thank God first and apologize to God first when we make mistakes. It's very important. And Shaul did not have that ability from day one to say, I'm sorry. He always blamed it on somebody else. He always blamed it on the people or Shmuel or somebody else. He could never accept responsibility. And here comes David, who says, I can say I'm sorry, I can apologize, and I will be there representing God Almighty. And this is a very, very powerful lesson for us to learn. So I think that we're going to stop here. We understand that this is a spiritual war. This is a war against the philosophy of Dagon, the king of the Philistines. And one very interesting thing, and you know that I don't get into Midrash, but I came across something very interesting from Targum. Targum is writings from the rabbinical writings from many years ago, and one of the things that they wrote about and they discussed was Goliath and Goliath's role in taunting of Israel. And in the Midrash, not the text, I want you to understand that this is Midrash, is the stories that they attribute, these rabbis write the story that Goliath, in his taunting, says to make the people feel even worse about themselves, as if they didn't feel bad that they had a horrible leader and king. Now he's going to make them feel worse by saying that he, Goliath, was the one that killed the two sons of Eli. Remember Eli, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol in Shiloh, who had two reprehensible sons, and the two sons go into battle to fight against the Plishtims, the Philistines, and what happens? They are killed. They are killed by the Philistines, and the Aron is taken from Shiloh to the temple of Dagon. Remember when the Philistines brought the Aron HaKodesh to the temple of Dagon, and the Dagon falls on his face, and what happens to the people? We talked about the hemorrhoids and they wanted, after a while they wanted to get rid of the Aron HaKodesh because it was afflicting the people. In Goliath's talk, in his taunting of Bnei Yisrael, he said, you have been so weak as a people. Your leaders have been so pitiful that I have been the one to kill the sons of even Eli the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. I mean, this would have people shivering in their boots.
Mhm.
And so these are the things that the people of Israel are experiencing somewhat. This is a story, but the fear that the power of this nation of Plishtim have been killing the nation of Israel, each year, over and over and over with their invasions, made the people weak and made them fearful, even more so than as the taunting continued for the 40 days. So I thought that was very, very interesting that he says to them what his role was in bringing down Israel. Uh, the lesson here to be learned is that we cannot ever drop our guard. We cannot put evil people in power. We cannot lose sight of what God wants of us in the world and in our country, because the moment we drop our guard and we lose that vision that God has given to us, we fail. We are punished and we fail. And this is a lesson that we haven't learned over and over and over again. I don't want to end on a unpleasant note. I will say that things get better as we begin to read, continue. Things change amazingly, and that we will see the relationship of Shaul and David continue, and how David rises in his strength and his power within the people of Israel, and eventually Shaul is no longer king. And in the meantime, we will see one of the most beautiful stories of friendship between Yonatan, the prince, not the king, but the prince who could have been king, and the shepherd boy, David, who will be king, and Yonatan's recognition of that fact, and their love for each other, and their camaraderie. It's a beautiful story, and it's a sub story within a story, and it's a very beautiful and powerful story. So, and I think that the relationship between David and Yonatan is a story for all times of the IDF, because when you read about how these two boys loved each other in Tanakh, it wasn't how some people say, oh, two guys, they love each other, they embrace, they this, they that, and they take it into a sordid place. It wasn't. It was like two soldiers of the IDF on the battlefield who embrace each other because they're fighting for the same thing. They believe in the same thing. Yonatan was extremely, extremely strong in his belief of Hashem, and he was very, very, very powerful young man. And so was David, and they recognized that in each other, and they respected each other. So we're going to learn about that in the coming days, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. So everyone should take care, be well, and we hope and pray that you have nothing but simcha and good health. And
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.